In the beginning, William Birkin and Albert Wesker were two of Umbrella's top minds working on the T-virus. But by the end, these monstrosities were not created overnight, or even by accident. It all began decades earlier in the secret labs of Umbrella. Wesker and Birkin were the two greatest minds of their generation. They were also taking time bombs of ego and genius. William with his G-virus and Wesker with his pursuit of perfection. Both driven by a friendly rivalry that spiraled out of control when it was manipulated by Umbrella. A move that would ultimately lead to the company's downfall. This is the story of the rivalry that brought down Umbrella. Our story begins with Oswell E. Spencer and a twisted eugenics program known as the Wesker Project. Spencer saw humanity as an evolutionary dead end. His life goal was to bring on a new evolution of superhumans, centered as their god. Gifted children were adopted or often stolen from their parents and groomed to fit Spencer's ideals. They were given the best education possible and were secretly monitored as they grew up. Upon reaching adulthood, Umbrella would determine the best candidates and infect them with a stabilized variant of the progenitor virus. This program is how we got Albert Wesker, a gifted young biotech scientist that would eventually be recruited by Umbrella in 1977. He was given a place at the Umbrella Executive Training Center. This was essentially a boarding school with a lesson program designed to instill the aggressive and inhumane values required to advance Umbrella's viral weapons research. Wesker easily outshined his graduating class in 1978, who was considered lackluster overall, all except for one other student, a 16-year-old prodigy, William Birkin, a scientist completely obsessed with his work, who also shared Wesker's ruthless nature, which is exactly what Umbrella was looking for. The assistant director's diary reveals a bit more about their character, Scholar Will, Practical Al. They really are opposites, and they're always competitive in everything they do. There's something ruthless and cruel about them both. This diary also reveals that James Marcus, the school's director and Umbrella co-founder, encouraged a rivalry between the two. Unfortunately for Dr. Marcus, fostering this competitive nature would only lead to his own downfall, and ultimately the destruction of Umbrella as well. After graduating from the training facility, Wesker and Birkin would be stationed at the Arclay labs, alongside Dr. Marcus himself. During their time together in the labs of Umbrella, the two pushed each other to reach new heights, but eventually, Wesker would admit defeat. He had reached his limits as a scientist, and Birkin's single-minded obsession on it ensured that he would not be surpassed, or at least so he thought, until another, even younger, child prodigy came exploding onto the virology scene. At just 10 years old, Alexia Ahsford was made a senior researcher for Umbrella. She was basically getting glazed by the rest of Umbrella's scientists, including Birkin's fellow researchers who worked alongside him every day. Birkin felt personally challenged and even jealous of her intellect, and his ego could not take it. It pushed him to completely lose himself in his work, as his emotional state spiraled. If you met William during this time, you probably wouldn't even know that he was recently married and expecting his first child. His obsession was consuming him, and with all of the attention falling on this genius 10-year-old, he desperately needed to prove himself in order to stay relevant and climb the ladder at Umbrella. Even Wesker was annoyed at the thought of this child outshining the two of them. But this is where their opposite characteristics become most apparent. While Wesker was annoyed, he never lost his cool like Birkin did. He remained strategic and cold and focused. Realizing that he had reached his limits in bioresearch, he had already began planning a new path forward to achieve his goals. He wouldn't allow himself to get caught up in a petty rivalry like William did. Throughout his life, and without exception, Wesker would use others as pawns, as a means to an end, and nothing more. When it came to achieving his vision of utopia, nothing else mattered to him. And that's why, when given the opportunity to betray Dr. Marcus and advance his own career, Wesker took it without hesitation. As did William, who was happy to claim Dr. Marcus's research on the virus as his own, and he would use Dr. Marcus's findings to advance his own studies as well. Birkin's focus only narrowed from here, and he would soon make a breakthrough with a new virus, known as Golgotha. Golgotha? It's the G-virus. This new discovery caught the interest of Spencer himself, who then gave Birkin the role of chief researcher at a new facility called the Nest, where he and his wife Annette could continue the development of this new virus. This all rubbed Wesker the wrong way. To him, the G-Virus felt unnecessary, and he couldn't figure out why Spencer would abandon the mission in pursuit of something as unrefined as the G-Virus. He would leave researching behind and begin work in the intelligence sector, attempting to find what Spencer's true motives were. After assassinating Marcus, he soon joined the military and worked for a while as a mole inside Umbrella, eventually leaving to form STARS. In the spring of 1998, an outbreak in the Arclay labs would cause chaos for Umbrella. This served as a perfect opportunity for Wesker, and it would be the downfall of Birkin. During the initial outbreak, Wesker did his best within STARS to keep the investigations directed away from Umbrella, but eventually it became too much to hide, and people were getting too close to the truth. Wesker was then ordered to sacrifice STARS to the BOWs. This would allow Umbrella to gain valuable combat data and eliminate them as witnesses in the process. Wesker would then collect the remaining BOW embryos and destroy the Arclay lab itself to wipe out all traces of the virus. During this time, Wesker and Birkin had also actually been tasked with reopening the training facility, but the outbreak made that a bit complicated, and Umbrella had noticed. In the midst of his betrayal of STARS, Wesker encountered Colonel Sergei Vladimir, the executive in charge of Umbrella's private military force, the UBCS. Wesker planned on simply destroying the training facility, but Sergei was not having it. After making his escape, Wesker made up his mind. He knew that Umbrella would make plans to dispose of him, and he was convinced at that point that abandoning Umbrella was now essential. Wesker agreed to a rival company's offer of employment in exchange for giving them the embryo samples rather than handing them over to Umbrella. Birkin supplied him with a prototype strain of the T-Virus, designed to mutate his body to enhance his strength and regenerative abilities. Wesker used this to fake his death so that he could betray Umbrella without raising suspicion. Practical Al, cold and calculated as always. Birkin had also planned on separating from Umbrella around this time, but just as the assistant director had observed, the two really were opposites. Rather than staying cool and collected, Birkin was growing paranoid and moving recklessly. He didn't want to abandon his G-Virus, and he also knew that Umbrella would likely dispose of him once it was finished. He attempted to betray Umbrella from the inside. He hoped to sell the G-Virus to the US military for their own bioweapons project in exchange for asylum for him and his family. Of course, Umbrella had moles inside the military, and they caught wind of this half-baked plan right away. They sent a team led by Hunk to capture Birkin and retrieve the virus before the military could reach him.
What the fuck were you thinking? Our orders were to bring him in alive.
I'm not sure if Wesker ever truly cared about anyone, but if he did, I think it would be Birkin. When Wesker was working with Ada to retrieve the G-Virus, he had hoped to bring Birkin on board at the new organization that he had defected to, but he was too late. Whether the two of them were truly friends or not, they definitely respected one another. Umbrella had groomed them to be relentless in the pursuit of evolving mankind, and they competed against one another with such intensity that they both surrendered their humanity to do it. Their individual portrayals of Umbrella brought nothing but chaos and exposed the shadowy parts of the pharmaceutical company to the world. Its employees began jumping ship, and all of their secrets were either traded or exposed for everyone to see. And that's how Umbrella's brightest stars ultimately led to their downfall.
Hey, it's up to us to take out Umbrella.
There's still plenty more to talk about with Wesker, and things can get pretty silly. If you want to dive deeper into one of Wesker's more mysterious moments, check out my video on Wesker and Rebecca Chambers right here. As always, thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys on the next video.